I'd now like to welcome Mr. John Johnson, OAM, President, Keilor East RSL, for the welcoming address.
Thanks, Matt. Fellow veterans, girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you here this cool, brisk morning to the Keilor East RSL Anzac Dawn Service, and I thank you for your attendance. I'd like to acknowledge the presence today of Ms. Samantha Byrne, the Mayor of Moonee Valley City Council, Mr. Ben Carroll MP, State Member for Niddrie, Minister for Public Transport, Roads and Road Safety, Mr. Bill Shorten MP, Federal Member for Maribyrnong, Shadow Minister for the National Disability Insurance Scheme and Shadow Minister for Government Services. Barry Finn, is Barry here now? I haven't seen him. So we'll put Barry down for an apology. He did say on Tuesday that he wasn't sure whether he was going to make it. And Mr. John Sapek is local councillor. Pierce Tyson, local councillor. Warrant Officer Class 2, Steve Plunkett, 4th Combat Service Support Battalion, and Sergeant Andrew Harris of 4th Combat Service Battalion, who's our guest speaker today. Today is the 107th anniversary of the landings of the Gallipoli beaches on Turkey by Australian and New Zealand troops, the original Anzacs. For 8 months, the Anzacs and Turks fought a grueling, soul-destroying, mostly trench warfare, where at times the enemy was so close that they could be heard talking softly. Although staunch enemies, respect was built up on both sides, so much so that the Turkish commander, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who was later to become the founder and first president of the Republic of Turkey, penned a verse, in remembrance of gallantry and everlasting friendship. Those heroes that shed their blood and lost their lives, you are now lying in the soul of a friendly country. Therefore, rest in peace. There is no difference between the Johnnies and the Mahmuts to us, where they lie side by side, now here in this country of ours. You, the mothers who sent their sons from faraway countries, wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom and are in peace. After having lost their lives on this land, they have become our sons as well. Anzac Day is a time for us to honour, recognise and show respect for all those that have served their country, particularly those that sacrificed their lives. I thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of the day.
Now welcome Sergeant Andrew Harris for CSSB as our guest speaker.
Time gives the memory of ordinary events, but not great events. In our nation's history, great events, whether in peace or war, live in our memories regardless of time. They are deemed great not necessarily for what they achieve, nor for whether they are reckoned to be victories or successes. Rather, the great events are distinguished by the quality of the human endeavour they call upon, by the examples they create for ordinary men and women, and by the legends they inspire. So it is with Anzac Day. On the 25th of April 1915, 16,000 New Zealanders and Australians surged ashore at the foot of the rugged cliffs of the Dardanelles Peninsula in Turkey to open a campaign intended to give Allied shipping access to the Black Sea. It was, historians say, an ill-conceived campaign in pursuit of a vague objective, premised under an underestimation of the military prowess and character of the Turkish soldiers and the tactical advantages they held. But the cream of the New Zealand and Australian armies, volunteers all, committed themselves with no hesitation about the nobility of their cause and fought with great courage, skill and audacity. In the 8 months which followed their first landing, some 50,000 Anzacs were committed to the battlefront, alongside 36,000 British, French and Indian comrades. When the last of them was withdrawn as the winter set in, more than 11,000 New Zealanders and Australians lay dead, and with them many more Allied and Turkish soldiers. Gallipoli was a tactical defeat. For the New Zealanders and Australians, withdrawal was a sort of tactical victory before the enemy realised what had happened, but the achievements of the Anzacs were to be measured other than that on the battlefield. It was not just the New Zealanders and Australians who were serving overseas in the name of their fledgling nations for the first time. By their commitment, their courage and their comradeship, The Anzac set standards that inspire their countrymen for generations to come. The legends they established gave fresh voice to new feelings of a national pride in both young Australians and news of their suffering and reaching the homes of anxiously awaiting families, brought together in ways they had not known before. For New Zealand and Australians, Anzac Day is our own. It is a day in which we mark the deeds of men and women who had come to see themselves as New Zealanders and Australians, who were mourned by people who regarded themselves as New Zealanders and Australians. The names on public memorials exist on virtually all our towns and cities that are important and regular reminders of the losses our nations felt in those darker days. The first Anzacs indeed command and deserve the respect and remembrance of present and future generations of all New Zealanders and Australians, regardless of race, colour or creed. On every 25th of April since 1915, New Zealanders and Australians at home and abroad have gathered to commemorate not just those Anzacs who died on the day, but every one of our servicemen and women who has died in war as a result of it since then. We remember on this day those who fell in both world wars, in conflicts in Korea, Malaya, Borneo and Vietnam since then, and while on service with international peacekeeping forces wherever they were. But it was Gallipoli which gave us pride, not in war, but in the knowledge that the Anzacs, put to the test, would not fail. That spirit and tradition sustained our forces in many later battles and trials, and in many ways sustains us now. And tradition is important. Suppose our troops had performed badly at Gallipoli, lost their nerve and their morale. How much more difficult would it have been for those who followed? The Gallipoli tradition laid down the rules and still helps us today to face new challenges. Duty, patriotism, individual sacrifice, and the affirmation of the New Zealand and Australian relationship are the enduring legacies of Gallipoli and all subsequent conflicts involving our two nations. The men and women who forged the Anzac spirit made sure that those who led them earned their respect. They all understood the values of independence, freedom and fairness above all. Possessed a willingness to defend these things if need be, because freedom only survives as long as people are willing to defend it. That is the spirit Anzac handed down to us. If we lose that Anzac spirit, we lose all. So we stand here today, along with thousands of others in cities and townships throughout New Zealand and Australia, to honour the great men and women and a great tradition. We gather, as we shall always gather, not to glorify war, but to remind ourselves that we value who we are and the freedoms we possess, and to acknowledge the courage and sacrifice of those who contributed so much in shaping the identity of this proud nation. Lest we forget.
Thank you, Sergeant Harris. I'd now like to call Miss Samantha Byrne, Mayor, Moonee Valley City Council, for a reading.
The Australian Response to the Motherhood by Gunner H.F. Halliday, 32nd Battery, 8th FA Brigade. The morn was dark when the trumpets blew. The wind blew cold as the daylight grew. We packed our kits and our hearts were gay. We answered the call and marched away. For a mile in length we lined the road. We cheerfully marched, though under a load. We were cheered as we sang familiar song, as we marched from our camp at Maribyrnong. We marched to the station at Ascot Vale, with flags and banners, all hearty and hail. As the trains were filled, we steamed away to embark on the Medic. 'Twas the 20th of May. We marched on board and took our stand, leaving our dear Australia land. The land of the free, the land of our birth, one of the chosen spots on earth. We gripped the hand of friends nearby, oft with grief and a parting sigh. To a mother, sister, or some friend near, perchance a wife we loved so dear. But Kitchener calls for a helping hand, Australia's help for the motherland. Cheerfully we hasten to our mother's cry. So farewell, Australia, and friends, goodbye.
Thank Thank you, Ms Byrne. Now I'd like to call Miss Bruno Norris for a prayer.
We said a little prayer today, a prayer for mates who died, and no one here is ashamed to say there's been some tears we've cried. For good mates full of zest for life, cut down in their prime, amid the wars for woe and strife now gone before their time. We said a little prayer today for all the families, and asking the Lord for strength, that they can bear their sadness, please. For parents who have lost a son, and kids who have lost their dad, and wives who have lost beloved ones, so tragic, Lord, so sad. We said a little prayer today for strength and courage, for mates and colleagues who must stay away to right this war. We're sure they're sad to lose their friends, so help them bear the strain, that when one day the fighting ends, this cost won't be in vain. We said a little prayer today for those that sacrifice their lives in service in the fray, to pay our freedom's price. Oh, help us, God, to realise, as the tears flow for the lost, our peace and freedom is the prize that won at such a cost.
Thank you, Bruno. Now call on Miss Jennifer Brown to read a poem.
The grieving mother. I had no skills to offer. I had no wealth to spend. Mine was a greater glory. I had a son to send. Silently the shades of evening gather around my lonely door. Silently they bring before me the face I shall see no more.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll now have the laying of the wreaths. Mr John Johnson, OAM, President, Keilor East RSL. Miss Jenny Brown, Senior Vice President, Keilor East RSL in Region 3. Mayor of Moonee Valley City Council, Ms Samantha Byrne, with Councillors John Skybeck, Pierce Tyson, Mr Ben Carroll MP, State Member from Niddrie, Minister for Public Transport, Roads and Road Safety. Mr Bill Shorten MP, Federal Member for Maribyrnong, Shadow Minister for NDIS. Mr Danny Pearson, Member for Essendon, represented today by Rob Gurry. Warrant Officer Class 2, Steve Plunkett, 4 Combat Services Support Battalion. Mr. Jack Grubb, Merchant Navy. Mr. Kevin Carter, Vietnam Veterans Northwest Region. Mr. Edwin Barton, Royal Australian Regiment Association. Mrs. Alva Lewis, Essendon Legacy Widows. Ross and Emily Darrigan, President 39th AIF Battalion. Mr. William Laker, Keilor East National Serviceman. Mr. John McBride, Keilor East Lawn Bowls. Mr. Alan Watman, Keilor East RSL Golf Club. Miss Megan Stapleton, Moonee Valley Brass Band. Mrs. Amanda Stevenson, on behalf of her late father, Ron King. Louisa Lebedis, Animals Killed in All Wars. Essendon North Primary, Gordon Bell, Mia and Emma Haggerty. Keilor Primary, Kiara Matthews and Myla Robinson. John Burke and David Belzarin, representing Karanaya Society. Keilor Basketball Association, Mrs. Anita Johnson. Nidri Traders Association, led by Jeanette McKenna. And if there's anybody else who would like to lay a wreath or a poppy, please step forward and do so. In memory of the gallant deed and a symbol of the palm that fadeth away, the reward of righteous reserved for those whose duty has been nobly done. I'd now like to read the veil as we remember those members of the Keilor East RSL who have passed since our last commemorative service. John Bell, Gordon Davey, Margaret O'Connell, William Hamilton, Beryl Stifel, Edwin Hicks, John Smith, Brenda McCormick, Zeno Barbara, Joan Remetta, Vasa Asofa Solomano, Elsie Smith, Brian McInerney, Vi Crutchfield, Don Wood, Tom Reedy, Ruth Barrett, Vincent Ball, Barbara Jones, Andrew Mielnick, Barry Vincent, Carol Sankovic. I'll ask you all now to stand for the reading of the Ode by Mr. Peter Dodds.
They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Thank you, Peter. Please be seated. We'll now have a reading by Mr. John Johnson, OAM.
Not a hero. The Anzac Day march was over. The old digger has done his best. His body ached from marching. It was time to sit and rest. He made his way to a park bench and sat with lowered head. A young boy passing him approached and politely said, "Please, sir, do you mind if I ask you what the medals you wear are for? Did you get them for being a hero when fighting in a war?" Startled, the old digger moved over and beckoned the boy to sit. Eagerly the lad accepted. He had not expected this. "First of all, I was not a hero," said the old digger in solemn tone, "but I served with many heroes, the ones that never came home. So when you talk of heroes, it's important to understand the greatest of all heroes gave their lives defending this land. The medals are worn in their honour as a symbol of respect. All diggers wear them on Anzac Day. It shows they don't forget." The old digger then climbed to his feet and asked the boy to stand. Carefully he removed the medals and placed them in his hand. He told him he could keep them to treasure throughout his life, a legacy of a kind left behind, paid in sacrifice. Overwhelmed, the young boy was speechless. He couldn't find words to say. It was there the old digger left him, going quietly on his way. In the distance, the young boy glimpsed him, saw him turn and wave goodbye. Saddened, he sat alone on the bench. Tears welled in his eyes. He never again saw him ever, but still remembers with pride when the old digger told him of heroes and a young boy sat and cried.
Thank you, John. I'd ask you all to stand. Invite Mrs. Amanda Stevenson up to lead us in singing the national anthems of New Zealand and Australia.
beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair. Beneath our radiant Southern Cross, we'll toil with hearts and hands to make this Commonwealth of ours renowned of all the lands. For those who've come across the seas with boundless plains to share, with courage let us all combine to advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you, Amanda. Now I'd like to call on the Guard Commander to dismiss the Guard. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending today's service. This concludes our service. I'd like to invite you all back over to the RSL. Egg and bacon rolls, sausage sizzle, and of course, the bar will be open. On behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank you all for turning up today. I'd also like to invite all of our past and present servicemen to ensure that they do see a committee member and collect a wristband. The benefits of that wristband will be explained to you as you collect it. Thank you for your attendance. Enjoy the rest of your day.